Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. The last episode I just uploaded was me sitting down with Jen and Lisa from the Prince and the Pervert podcast and having a nice chat about Jeffrey Epstein and his Core 4. Make sure, if you're not following Jen and Lisa, which I doubt at this point, but make sure if you're not following them and supporting their work, that you do that. They have been in this fight from pretty much the beginning, and I got to give them all the credit in the world for keeping the struggle alive down there in Australia. So, to the Australian folks out there, thank you so much for the hospitality and for how incredibly you all receive me every time I am on the podcast. I'm just absolutely, positively in love with not only the nation of Australia, but the people of Australia at this point. So thank you so much for all of the support from down under. You folks are absolutely top notch. All right, so our article today is from the Seattle Times, but it was originally published by the AP, the Associated Press. The headline, Prince Andrew holds the cards as the U.S. pursues sex probe. Pretty ominous, right? The authors of this article are Larry Newmeister and Jim Mustian. U.S. investigators probably can't force Britain's Prince Andrew, a.k.a. the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, to cooperate in the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking probe, and the Duke's lawyers should probably not allow him to be interviewed by investigators, legal experts said. Yeah, that's probably good advice. I've been saying this for a while, and I am not a legal expert, but, you know, when you have a guy who sits down with a journalist like Emily Maitlis and gets absolutely railroaded by her, how do you think he's going to react if you put him in a room with seasoned interrogators? People that do this for a living, that they live to catch you up in process crimes and to trip you up and to get you lying under oath. Andrew's law team would be absolutely ridiculous to put him down in front of seasoned investigators at this point. Obviously, that's what we want to happen, but it's going to take some serious wrangling from the prosecutor's office in America to get that done. Unless, of course, look, folks, unless, of course, someone comes forward with some real tangible evidence pointing at Andrew in the criminal regard of this case, right? Now, we have Virginia's allegations against him that are absolutely positively credible. But what I'm saying is if somebody else comes forward and can corroborate this and can talk about how Andrew was really in the know, say they flip somebody like Kellen Vickers. You think that she doesn't have some of the dirt on Andrew and what was going on between him and Ghislaine Maxwell as far as their relationship is concerned, their friendship? Remember, Kellen Vickers reported directly to Ghislaine Maxwell. So Kellen Vickers definitely has the keys to the kingdom, right? She knows some secrets. She knows where some of the skeletons are buried. So the only way I could see Prince Andrew's legal team being compelled to have a sit-down conversation at this point is if there is some serious evidence. And there might be. I don't know one way or the other what the FBI has. And nobody does. Anybody who says that they know the evidence that the FBI is using right now to pursue this MLA, it's all speculation in my opinion. We don't know what is in those internal FBI documents, right? All we can do is speculate and try and put the pieces together from the outside looking in. It would be an error of astounding proportion for him to ever come to the United States. Yeah, I agree with that, because I'll tell you what, if the government doesn't want to arrest him, we have, we can do a citizen's arrest here in the United States, right? Let's wait for him, show up with 50,000 people and demand his arrest, or demand he gets back on that plane and goes back to wherever the hell he came from, because he's certainly not welcome in the United States. I can tell you that much right now. Prince Andrew, the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, is not, and I repeat, not welcomed in this country. And if he comes to this country, he will be swooped up. He will have to face questions. Believe it. Said Rob Fettel, an ex-federal prosecutor now in private practice, it would probably also be an error for him to ever meet with U.S. law enforcement authorities and make a statement. I was talking about this last night with Jen and Lisa, and it's just obvious for anyone who has even a little bit of an idea of how these things work that Prince Andrew is not the kind of man that you want sitting down with these interrogators. He can't keep his story straight. He doesn't have a proper alibi. He continuously lies. He's aloof. And people like that, they never have any self-awareness because they've never had to take responsibility for their actions throughout their whole entire life. The man was born in purple, and he was spoiled from the time he was born up until the time he was outed as a sick bastard. Prosecutors in New York have wanted to speak with Andrew for several months as part of their examination of allegations made by several women that some of Epstein's staff and his girlfriend, co-conspirator, when he says girlfriend, they're talking about Ghislaine Maxwell here, or as I've started to call her, Bill Clinton's Guma. So let's not call her his girlfriend, okay? His co-conspirator helped recruit him underage sex partners. One of those women, Virginia Roberts, also claims Epstein arranged for her to have sex with several rich or notable men. 100% that is what Virginia said, and it should be noted in every single one of these articles. It shouldn't just say several rich or notable men. Let's name some of them. Bill Richardson. How about that name? That's a name everybody knows, huh? How about Glenn Dubin? Can we talk about him a little bit or not? How about Marvin Minsky? Why do we just say notable men here? What is the legacy media truly afraid of? Roberts said she had sex with the prince 3 times in London and at Epstein's New York mansion when she was 17 and in the U.S. Virgin Islands when she was about 18. In November, Andrew, whose older brother, Prince Charles, is heir to the throne, denied those allegations, but said he would help any appropriate law enforcement agency with their investigations if required. I mean, this is like one of the most epic open mouth and insert foot moments that we have ever seen. This moron saying he's going to help the investigation is just an act of complete and utter arrogance. This man knew sitting there he never had any desire to sit down with investigators and help investigators. He hasn't talked to, he could have stepped forward and talked to these investigators for how many years? And then let's not forget about the emails he was sending with Ghislaine Maxwell that were unearthed in 2015, where he has questions about Virginia. Oh, I thought you didn't know who Virginia was, buddy. We're on to you, Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, okay? Your lies, your deceit, you're not smart enough to play this game. You're not crafty enough to play this game. You're a bumbling, moronic fool. But he has yet to speak with New York investigators about his past friendship with Epstein, who killed himself, allegedly, last year while awaiting trial. This week, his lawyers blame the U.S. Department of Justice, saying the prince had offered 3 times to give information to investigators, though on a condition that his statements be confidential. Oh, of course. We don't want the public to know what you have to say. We don't want the public to have any idea at the true nature of your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, do we there, princey boy? The people of England, they're already set to show up with pitchforks and torches at this point. If this guy comes out and actually spills the beans, forget it. Now again, I am not a monarchist by any means. I don't know much about the history of the Windsor family or anything like that. But I do know about monarchies from the past. And I do know about royal families from the past and around the world. And what it looks like to me is that this is a monarchy in its dying throes here. I mean, is this a scandal that they can come back from? I know they've weathered a lot of storms in the past, but this is a scandal of epic proportions. We're talking the U.S. Justice Department, okay, is calling Prince Andrew basically a liar. That is huge news, folks, and it is a huge development in the case, because if the prosecutors are so brazen that they are willing to come out publicly and shame Prince Andrew, they must have copious amounts of evidence that they're holding close to their chest as they continue their investigation. The U.S. Attorney in Manhattan, Jeffrey S. Berman, countered that Andrew's lawyers were misleading the public about his willingness to cooperate. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not a huge fan of Jeffrey Berman, and I'm not a huge fan of the SDNY at this point. I used to have a lot of respect for the way they handle themselves. You know, we're talking about the office that pretty much crushed the mafia. And these were people that went about their business and were hard-charging agents that really took their job seriously. But now the SDNY, they're caught up in all sorts of nonsensical political maneuvering, and it's just ridiculous. They should be focused on what is really important, and what is really important is cracking the code of this Jeffrey Epstein criminal organization. And it all starts with the fat cats on top, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jean-Luc Brunel, and to some extent, Prince Andrew. U.S. prosecutors reportedly made a formal request through the British government to interview Andrew. Former federal prosecutor David Weinstein called that a last resort maneuver, but noted that even if it is granted, Andrew isn't required to answer investigators' questions and could invoke rights against self-incrimination like anyone. That's fine. The idea is to finally get him under oath, get him into a deposition, and force him to do that. Look how bad Jeffrey Epstein came off at the beginning of Filthy Rich and throughout during those depositions. The man looked like an idiot. He looked like he was guilty as hell, and the same will be true if Andrew takes the same course of action. The whole idea here, folks, is that this has been a travesty of justice because none of these people have had their day in court. That is all I am asking for here. I'm not asking to go round these people up and convict them without a day in court. That is certainly not my MO. What I want here is a robust investigation. Then I want trials followed by convictions, okay? That's how it works. That's how the justice system is supposed to work. An attorney for numerous Epstein survivors, Brad Edwards, said he had failed to persuade the prince to answer several questions as part of several civil lawsuits. So the prince wouldn't even answer civil questions, okay? He wouldn't even try and help these girls out in the civil case, even now, after the estate has taken responsibility for the abuse that these girls suffered. Even after they validated their claims by setting up a compensation fund for them, the prince still has not come forward to offer anything, not one bit of information that could help this case. We have received several correspondence that were other loops and hoops we'd have to jump through in order to ever get him to sit for a deposition, and that even then it would be highly unlikely, Edwards said. I've always been given the impression that whether he has immunity or not, he certainly behaves like he does. And that's Brad Edwards just said it right here, folks. Okay, the loops and the hoops. How often do I talk about all of the different loops and the jumps and the moves that they make behind the scenes, the loopholes? And all of that was put into the law by the criminal-ass politicians who we elected, by the way, who have taken their power and decided to use it for their friends in polite society while shitting on the rest of us and pilfering our wealth. Boy, isn't it fantastic. I haven't really understood the game he's played, said Edwards, author of a new book about Epstein's case. It's time to come over and just tell everybody what you know and answer all of the questions and move on. There's no denying you have information to give, and you failed to give it. Look, Brad Edwards is 100% right here. And again, kudos to Brad Edwards for having the courage. This man not only stood up to Jeffrey Epstein, but he's here calling out the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, a royal prince of the blood, for his behavior inside of Jeffrey Epstein's criminal organization. Where is the legacy media demanding the same accountability? Last fall, Andrew told the BBC he doesn't remember Roberts. Of sex with her, he said flatly, it didn't happen. He acknowledged staying at Epstein's residences and seeing him once or twice annually. Not residences. He said he stayed in New York. He's never copped to staying anywhere else. Yet we have sources that put him at Zorro Ranch, sources I've actually spoken with myself face to face while I was in New Mexico. So please, if I can speak with sources that know this, then these papers, these outlets with all of these resources can find these sources as well. But instead, they choose to be lazy. Instead, they choose not to dig deeper than just the very surface of this issue. After the interview was widely panned by critics who said Andrew seemed insensitive to Epstein's survivors, the prince quit royal duties. Again, it took the public to force him to do that. And that is why I tell you that you have all of the power, in my opinion, here, folks. The droves of you out there who are listening to this podcast right now, those of you who are out there researching this, those of you who are out there spreading the word, you are the engine that moves this car, baby. Because let me tell you what, the pressure that you're asserting on these people is really making headway. And I see it on a daily basis. When you have the Prince of England up against the wall like this and on the defensive, you know that the strategy being employed by the lawyers of the survivors and the all-out blitz by going straight to the people and skipping the legacy media the way the survivors have has been a stroke of brilliance. Because what it does is it cuts out the gaslighting. You get the story straight from the survivors, and it's up to you to either believe them or not. You don't need the media to tell you. You don't need me to tell you. You don't need anyone else to tell you. All of their accounts of what occurred are out there now. Listen to them. And it's very simple. It's either you believe what these girls are saying or you do not. And if you do not, I would like to see the evidence on why you do not believe what they have to say. Because, folks, from where I'm sitting, it is overwhelming at this point that these people were all engaged in not only a sex trafficking ring, but an ongoing criminal enterprise. Longtime civil rights lawyer Ron Kuby called Andrew's performance a disaster. Anybody who wondered as to whether or not it's best for him to cooperate and just put this behind him changed their view after watching him on television. I mean, there's a reason why this guy is seen and not heard, he said, and that's 100% right. Anybody who watched that interview, I don't know anybody who could sit here and tell me with a straight face that it would be a good idea for the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family to actually go and sit in front of an investigator. If you think that would be a good idea for him, I'd like to hear your reasoning why. Besides, Kuby added, the British government is just not going to allow this to happen. It's bad publicity. I kind of disagree with that. What is worse publicity? Opening the curtain and shining the light in and letting people know what is really going on, or trying to hide it when everybody really already knows what's going on? So now the British government and the royal family are going to also be enabling Jeffrey Epstein's crimes after the fact? If that's the case, I'll tell you what, we're a lot closer to pitchforks and torches than even I thought. Experts said the prince could theoretically be prosecuted in the United States if he was found to have committed a crime, but there are no signs the case is headed there. Well, no signs that we can see publicly, right? We don't know what the maneuvering is behind the scenes. We don't know if the prosecutors are really targeting Andrew in a criminal capacity and just saying to him, well, come in and let's have a talk. We think you have some evidence. And then from there, using what he says to catch him in lies. And that is how they operate usually. So we really don't know where it's headed, to be honest with you. Chances are that they're going to try and get a statement from him. But where it goes after that, we have no idea, folks, all right? It's just a very fluid situation, and there's a lot of moving parts here that will determine what happens moving forward. Among other things, investigators are examining allegations that Epstein's longtime companion, co-conspirator, also a child molester, also an abuser, the daughter of a deceased British publishing magnate, helped recruit young girls to give Epstein massages that led to sex, and also helped him abuse them young girls. In 2011, Maxwell called the allegations abhorrent and entirely untrue. Oh, well, that's it. Put a bow on it, folks. We could all stop investigating the case, the prosecutors can go home, and that's it. It's all over and done with. Ghislaine Maxwell emphatically says she was not involved. No, she doesn't have to get subpoenaed, no deposition. She doesn't have to go under oath, folks, because her word is good enough for us. Said nobody ever. I mean, really, that's what these people think, though. They think they can just say, well, I'm innocent, and we'll believe them. And then when scrutiny occurs and people start asking questions, inevitably they fall back on their charitable works. Oh, well, I worked with this charity and I gave out this money and I did this and I did that. Meanwhile, we already know the whole reason you were ever involved in a charity was just in case this day came, so you could wrap yourself in that charity as a shield and use it to protect you from the scrutiny that you knew would come eventually. Well, we're not going to let you get away with it. We're not going to let Ghislaine Maxwell get away with it, and we're certainly not going to let the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family off the hook. This is the year, folks, that the predators turn into the prey. If you'd like to contact me, you could do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI. Also, you can find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, everybody, we'll be back later on tonight with the Daily Drop.